Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. I'm super excited to have you all here today. I can't wait to dive into this topic. We have a really in-depth presentation for you all, and I'm really excited to dive in. While we wait for just a couple more minutes for folks to join, I want to make sure that all our attendees are able to use the question box feature in the GoToWebinar control panel. So if you would all use that question box, it's essentially going to be like your chat feature for the day. So while you won't be able to chat with other audience members, anything you put into that question box, I'll be able to see and monitor throughout the webinar. So for everyone on the call today, I'd love for you to type into that question box and just let me know where you're calling in from today. I'll be able to call out some of the responses. I love that one of the best parts about these webinars is they connect people from all different corners of the world. So let's see who is calling in from today. For example, I am based in Boston, Massachusetts, born and raised here. I love it. Kind of the opposite end of where our guest speaker Tyler is from, which is Texas. So let's see here. We have Jennifer calling in. She is saying hello. Hello there, Jennifer. We got some folks, Carrie from San Diego, welcome. Ashley from Plymouth, welcome. Tons and tons of responses coming in. We have Elisa from Atlanta, welcome. We have Ashley from Virginia. Hey there, Ashley. Andrew from Minneapolis. Hey there. Elaine from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. Welcome. Karen from Louisville, Kentucky. Hey there. Hannah from Wellesley, not far from where I am. Adina from Wellesley, Mass. We have Jennifer from Wayland, Mass. Wow, lots of local folks to me on here today. Bridget from Phoenix, Arizona. Hey there, Bridget. Vanessa from Melbourne, Florida. Robert from Raleigh, North Carolina. Andre from Connecticut. Tons and tons of responses coming in from all different corners of the US, Canada, and the world. I wish I could call out every single one of you all. Right now, there's tons of responses coming in, so thank you all for participating in that. With that, we're going to jump into a few housekeeping items for today. So for everyone on this call, I just want to get us on the same page as to who Local IQ is. So for some of you, you might already be working with Local IQ, some of you might be totally new, and some of you might be familiar with our WordStream and Reach Local sister brands. So for everyone on this call, let's just get on the same page that Local IQ is a fully integrated growth marketing platform that combines innovative and unparalleled technology and expertise to give your business the tools it needs to thrive and prosper. So how exactly do we do that? Well, technology is at our core. So we use AI optimized technology informed by data from over 1 million Local IQ campaigns to give you the data-backed confidence to make the right marketing decisions. We give you tools at your fingertips that put time back into your day to focus on running your business and take away the time from menial marketing tasks. And we've been in the marketing game for over 15 years, which if you think of the age of digital marketing, it's not much older than that. So we've really been there through all the ups and downs and ebbs and flows of the industry and the landscape, and we're here to tell the story. Something that we're really excited about and proud of here is that Local IQ is a premier partner. This isn't granted to any marketing platform out there. We have to hit a set of rigorous requirements to be able to be a premier partner on all the major ad platforms as we are. So it's something we're really proud of and just wanted to shout that out. So a little bit about me today, your webinar host and facilitator. My name is Susie. It's wonderful to meet you all. I'm a senior content marketing specialist over at Local IQ, where I write everything under the marketing sun, educational content on the WordStream and Local IQ blogs, from SEO to PPC to display ads to anything in between. I have written about it, and how I got into this role was I formerly was a digital marketing consultant over at WordStream, where I was coaching businesses and marketers similar to the folks on this call through the day-to-day best practices on platforms like Google Ads and Facebook Ads. So I took that real-life experience in marketing and applied it to the educational content that we put out on our websites, on our webinars today. As I mentioned earlier, I'm based in Boston, and a little bit of an unpopular opinion that I have is winter is my favorite season. I love to go snowboarding on the weekends, so I'm really looking forward to the first snowfall of the season. It's coming up. So you can follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter if you'd like, or X as we call it now. I do share out articles, upcoming webinars, any platform updates that people should be aware of, and so on. And with that, that leads me to introducing our guest speaker for today. So Tyler, I'll let you take it away for this slide.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Tyler Mask. I'm the senior manager over our custom solutions team. And so just to kind of demystify that a little bit, we are 100% social for the most part, but at the end of the day, we cover products and services that fall a little bit more out of our standard portfolio. I've been in digital marketing and strategy for over 10 plus years, and I'm actually based out of Dallas, Fort Worth. So giddy up, y'all, I guess at the end of the day. And a couple really fun facts about me. I love finding rare whiskeys. I've actually been to Scotland. I've been to the remote island of Islay and have been to several of the most peaty, smokiest distilleries in the world. And I'm also a board game aficionado. So if I've got any friends on this call who are super into Magic the Gathering or D&D, we're talking that level. So that's a bit about me.
I love it. That's so interesting. I didn't even know that about you, Tyler. So those are really good fun facts. With that, we'll jump into just a couple last minute housekeeping announcements for you all. A common question that I get asked on these webinars is, where can you learn more about the topics that we cover here? Where can you learn more about Local IQ? So definitely check us out. You can check out our blogs, both the WordStream and Local IQ blogs found on our websites here, cover all the topics that we cover in these webinars in depth. So if you ever feel like you need to take a little bit more time with anything that we cover here, you can find more articles there and take your time with any of those topics. So again, the hour flies by, so I always like to mention that. Also, be sure to follow us on social media. You can find Local IQ on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter or X, and YouTube. And with the YouTube mention, I'd love to reiterate here that this webinar will be recorded. You'll get the materials in your inbox later today along with a copy of the slides. But the reason why I mention this here is please note that you can find all of our webinar recordings easily on our YouTube channels. So just type Local IQ or WordStream into the YouTube search bar, go to our channel, and you'll find all of our webinar recordings right there. So if you've missed any past webinars and want to catch up, or you can't find the recording for this one and you want to watch the recording back for this webinar, you can find it right on our YouTube channels. Same for WordStream. Check us out, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And again, we do share out a lot of platform updates that advertisers should be aware of. We also mention any more upcoming webinars. So if you want to join more of these in future, I highly suggest giving us a follow. And if you've attended any of our past webinars, you know I love to keep our listeners on their toes. So I just want to warm you all up with a quick pop quiz and just kind of take a quick pulse check. How are we feeling about Facebook ads? I would love for people to type into that question box. Let me know, how are you feeling with your Facebook ads? What do you feel like is the biggest challenge for your business right now or your team? Do you feel like you're crushing it and you're hitting all your Facebook ads goals? Do you feel like maybe you're getting clicks, you're starting to navigate Facebook ads, but not quite seeing the results you want? Or maybe you're totally new and never advertised on Facebook ads at all. Totally okay. This webinar is friendly to all levels, but I just love to call out a few of these responses here. So Darlene says she feels a little confused when it comes to Facebook ads. Totally valid. Deanne says getting ads approved that fall under special ad categories. We all know that can definitely be an uphill battle. Jacob says navigating attribution in GA4 for Facebook ads, definitely something a lot of advertisers are dealing with right now. Asa says that CPMs are looking a little high. Allie says that getting engagement and such on them is something that they're constantly achieving and working towards. Let's see. Jennifer says she's totally new to Facebook ads. That's okay too. Samantha says she's not quite sure how much money she should be spending on Facebook ads. Totally valid. It can be tough, especially if you don't have the historical data or experience to really know or to kind of benchmark where you once were and where you want to be with Facebook ads. So tons of responses coming in. I wish I could call out every single one of them here, but did you notice that all of the responses I just called out were totally different, right? Every business is unique and every advertiser's needs is going to be different from the different webinar attendee next to you, right? So I want us all to keep that in mind throughout this webinar. While we're going to give you suggestions, tips, and insights, always be thinking about how it could apply to your specific situation. So if you feel like your performance on Facebook ads is different from the benchmarks that we discussed today, that's okay. Just know that your situation is going to be unique, and that's kind of the beauty of digital marketing and advertising, is you can customize it to your own goals and needs. Just a quick rundown of what we're going to cover today. So we are going to kind of go through the big picture of the benchmarks, the key results, and then we're going to focus most of the presentation on our in-depth analysis with our lovely Facebook ads expert, Tyler, and then we're going to jump into some thought starters in the Q&A for you all. So the reason why I made sure that you're all able to use that question box is I would love to see your questions throughout the webinar. Be sure to save your questions for the Q&A session at the end. If you feel like you've attended any of our past webinars, you've probably noticed that A lot of our old past Q&A sessions have been super in-depth. It's kind of a unique experience to get your questions answered in what feels like a one-on-one setting with an expert. So definitely stick around for that. I can't wait to dive into some of the questions that you all have today. So with that, I'm just going to give us a quick intro into, what are these benchmarks? Why are we doing this? How can you use them? Why are we giving this presentation today? So a benchmark is basically how you're going to structure and measure the success for your Facebook ads. So it can be definitely a tricky undertaking to get into these types of benchmarks results. So while I hope that a lot of the advertisers here today are able to benchmark their own performance and see how they're pacing towards their goals throughout their Facebook advertising journey on their own account, I also feel like these benchmarks can be really helpful for folks within the with all throughout the different industries, because this helps you understand how your performance compares to other advertisers in your industry. Unfortunately, if everyone could see into their competitor's Facebook ads account, it'd be a much different space, but we don't have that ability. So these benchmarks are essentially kind of the next best thing, where you're able to see industry averages and compare them to your business. So again, it can help you set goals, it can help you define success if you're new, and it can help you understand what to expect, what you should be spending, and things like that. So for the Facebook benchmarks that we're going to cover today, they are focused on 2 specific objectives within Facebook ads. So basically what that means is, for Facebook ads, whenever you run an ad on Facebook, it goes within a campaign that has a given objective that you choose and assign to it. And those objectives optimize the campaign and indicate to Facebook how it's going to best serve your ad to help you reach your goals. The 2 types of campaigns across industries that we analyzed for these benchmarks were traffic and leads. And there's a few reasons for that. One of them primarily being, these are usually the 2 most common and most popular objectives for the majority of businesses out there of all shapes and sizes. They can be very effective. Of course, kind of what they're going to help you optimize and do is a little self-explanatory there. Of course, traffic is going to optimize your Facebook ads to get the most clicks, and then leads, of course, is going to optimize your Facebook ads to get the most leads. So that's going to be kind of the bulk of what the data is coming from today, is those 2 campaigns and campaign objectives. All of the figures that we're going through are median figures to account for any outliers. All of the industries had a minimum of multiple different unique campaigns within each industry, so we could get a full view of how the industry is looking within each individual industry. So that's just a little bit of background of the data that you're going to see here today. So let's look at the key results just in a nutshell, at a glance, like what are the big takeaways from all of this data that we analyzed. So the first takeaway for the traffic campaigns, and for Facebook lead gen campaigns, is that click-through rate has increased for the majority of industries, meaning that the majority of industries that are using Facebook lead ads tend to see more clicks coming into those Facebook lead ads. And we'll get into some of the trends that might be leading into that, but it can be fairly significant for some of these industries. So for year over year, 15 out of multiple industries within this category did see an increase in clicks here. And while clicks did increase for the leads objective, cost per click has decreased for the traffic objective. So the traffic objective is also increasing your number of clicks here, but it also is seeing a decline in cost per click. So that means that you're probably going to be seeing more clicks for less money from your Facebook traffic ads. Additionally, we saw conversion rate had increased for 13 out of the 19 industries that use the leads objective year over year. So again, 13 out of 19 industries saw a conversion rate increase, again, showing the efficacy of Facebook lead ads. And that kind of makes sense, and I know Tyler is going to have commentary on this as well, but if you think about the nature of a Facebook lead ad, right? The Facebook lead ads allow users to become a lead with your business right from within the Facebook ads platform. They don't necessarily have to click off to your website to fill out a form or give your business a call. So it would be pretty natural that you would see an increased conversion rate here, since it's a little bit easier for users to convert compared to other traditional advertising avenues. We also saw a cost per lead for the leads objective actually stay the same or decrease for 12 out of 19 industries. So for the majority of industries, not only are you seeing an increase in conversions, but you're also seeing a decrease in cost per lead. So the overall key takeaway is that Facebook advertising continues to offer complementary advantages to search ads because of lower and more stable costs. So kind of our point here is that you're going to see some ebbs and flows in the trends. You know, some industries did see an increase, but of course not all of them did. So you want to be thinking about how your Facebook ads can play into a more holistic, full funnel strategy, you know, to complement your search ads or whatever it may be. So it's kind of all used in tandem to grow your business online. And this is where we'll dig into some key industry insights. So those were just kind of the overall industry averages for the main metrics. Now let's dive in with Tyler into each individual industry, the highs and lows for each metric. And we're going to start with the traffic campaigns. So again, for the campaigns and industries that were using traffic campaigns within Facebook, this is their data, and then we'll move on to separately the leads objective data. So I'll kick us off here, Tyler. I want everyone to know that for the traffic campaigns, the average click-through rate is 1.51%. Now, our kind of the main thing that I'm thinking about here when I'm looking at this click-through rate number is that, you know, click-through rate for these traffic campaigns increased year over year for 9 out of the 19 industries that use Facebook lead ads, but meanwhile for traffic campaign for 15 out of the 23 industries, they saw a CTR decrease. So even though click-through rate has decreased for traffic campaigns, average click-through rate still remains higher than other available data. So some of the highs that we're seeing here is, of course, industries like arts and entertainment at the highest level at 2.55%. And then we're also seeing real estate being very high at 2.45% and restaurants at food at 2.29%. And then alternatively, on the lower end, we saw finance and insurance having the lowest click-through rate at 0.88%, as well as dentists and dental services at 0.81%, followed by automotive repair and service parts at 0.99%. And Tyler, I'd love to hear from you. You know, when I'm calling out those highs and lows, what are you thinking?
This is my favorite part of these types of presentations, Susie, honestly. At the end of the day, I think if you stop and you think about these metrics from a consumer perspective, these metrics make a lot of sense, right? Because if you look at things like dentists and dental services, finance and insurance, these are very sticky industries, you guys. So at the end of the day, think about how often you shift from one dentist to another, or how often you change your financial planner. So when you stop and you look at these types of metrics here, it becomes very personal, right? At the end of the day, some of these services, they're for life. So to get somebody to convert or to change, those are very hard fought click-through rates. On the flip side of that, you look at things like arts and entertainment or animals and pets. These are industries, right, that have, it's a lower cost to convert, right? You know, sometimes apparel, fashion, and jewelry as well. The cost there is not very high. And a lot of times it's transactional. At the end of the day, sometimes they may purchase one thing and they could move on to another vendor. I think the biggest thing that really stands out here is real estate, because it kind of goes against the flow of like, okay, if we're talking about the more expensive, more sticky industries being the ones with the lower metrics, why is real estate so high? And this is actually one of my favorite ones. It's because we're all so nosy. I'll be honest, right? You know, anytime you guys move to a new neighborhood, I'm sure you guys have creeped on your neighbors' homes to kind of see what those look like. You look at estimated values. If you're shopping for, apartments, or whatever, looking for different apartment complexes or ideas, real estate tends to be one of those nosy verticals where folks sometimes they have no need or no reason to convert necessarily, but they are getting ideas for the future, or they are trying to find out about a place they could end up being. So that's kind of why I really love to call that out. So overall, right, when you start to look at it through that lens, it starts to make a lot more sense. So there's always going to be outliers. Like I said, real estate is the one that it's the most expensive purchase on here. But if you look at everything else, restaurant and food is also one of the highest charting ones. Sometimes you'll go to one restaurant, you're faithful there, you go there every other week. Sometimes it's a one and done, right? But there's no fear of spending too much, or what could happen later on down the road on some of these that have just so much higher clicks, right? And if you stop and think about arts and entertainment being the highest one, who the heck is not, interested in reading about the latest news about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, right? So they kind of start to speak for themselves. So Susie, let's hop over to the next one real quick, and we'll take a look at metrics from a little bit different angle.
Sure, absolutely. So along with click-through rate, for cost per click for traffic campaigns, the industry average across all industries was 0.83 dollars. So it was under $1 for the average cost per click for traffic campaigns. With some of the highs we see here with dentists and dental services at $1.27, furniture at $1.19, as well as attorneys and legal services at $1.15. On the opposite end, for businesses that saw typically lower cost per click on Facebook, travel was only 43 cents a click, restaurants and food at 52 cents a click, arts and entertainment at 44 cents a click, and real estate for 65 cents a click. And I will just say, as I'm calling out these industries that we're using here, I'm seeing a lot of questions already coming in about specific industries or niche markets that every business might be in, right? These are kind of more generalized groups of industries. So kind of think back to that note of wanting to relate this back to your own specific needs and situation. Use these as a guideline. So if you don't see your exact niche industry here, I would suggest going to the next closest. And again, you're going to have the opportunity at the end to connect with an expert to get your own individualized questions answered about your specific industry. So I would just kind of, again, mention that and hold on for that at the end. With that being said, Tyler, I would love to hear your thoughts about these costs because, having worked in search ads, for example, for so long, these types of cost per clicks compared to the typical cost per click of like $4 to $5 in search ads across all industries, this is much lower. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on these.
Yeah. So I think the first thing I want to call out here is, guys, that there's an inversion, right, of the data. So anything that, had a higher click-through rate on the previous slide obviously has a much lower cost per click at the end of the day. But to kind of answer that question, Susie, the interesting thing about where Facebook falls in the funnel is it can honestly fall at all phases. But when we start talking about specific objectives, and in this case, we're talking about traffic, the ultimate outcome we're looking for here is clicks. So obviously cost per click is that metric we're looking for. Whereas with search ads, while you are looking for a click, where you fall out in that funnel, you're not at the discovery phase per se, you're at that research phase, right? So that's when somebody's much more likely to convert at the end of the day. So if you think about it from that perspective, the audience that is there, that pool to kind of choose from, is far slimmer than the pool that could be higher in the funnel where Facebook has, at a typical traffic campaign. So that's kind of the biggest reason there. So at the end of the day, they're both clicks, but the value, and I wouldn't want to say quality is the right word for it, but we'll go with it for now. The quality of that click, as far as where they could be falling in that conversion funnel, it's just higher, or technically lower, I guess, per se in this case. So that's kind of the biggest reason there. So, and that's kind of why we always say, as consultants here at Local IQ, it's good to blend both at the end of the day, right? Because in order to get to those more expensive clicks where people ultimately convert, you got to start with the higher, end of the funnel, right? Where you don't necessarily see as many leads. And it's a common conversation that we have with a lot of our clients, well, where are the leads with these traffic campaigns? At the end of the day, that's not what we're optimizing these campaigns around. This isn't what Facebook's algorithm is designed to do for this objective. It's designed to get you ample clicks. So you can either retarget further down the funnel, or, eventually when somebody's more in the research phase of when they're doing PPC, when they're searching through Google, they're more likely to convert. So kind of see them at different places of the funnel, honestly, is the best way to say it. So yeah, again, a lot of this stuff here, it relates and directly correlates to that previous slide. So there's not much more to unpack here per se. But Susie, were there any more call outs you wanted me to dissect here before we jump on?
No, I really appreciate that insight, Tyler. I completely agree with what you were saying about, again, wanting to set your expectations according to these campaign objectives. And that's exactly why we split out the data how we did, is like you said, traffic campaigns are going to drive traffic. So that's why you might not necessarily be seeing the leads come in directly, but it's moving customers through that funnel, as you said. With that, I do want to move on to the lead gen campaigns. So again, for the traffic campaigns, we just focused on click-through rate and cost per click for the reasons that Tyler just outlined, where they're not optimized for leads or conversions. So we just focused on the click-through rate and cost per click metrics for traffic campaigns. Now, as we move over to lead gen campaigns and Facebook ads across industries, we're going to look at both those two metrics, as well as conversion rate and cost per lead, because these are conversion optimized campaigns. So with that, Tyler, I'm going to kick us off with the click-through rate in lead gen campaigns across industries, which is 2.5%. The industries that saw the lowest click-through rate for their lead campaigns were, of course, attorneys and legal services at 1.79%, automotive repair and service and parts at 1.38%, as well as industrial and commercial at 1.5%. And then on the positive side, we have travel crushing it for the click-through rate at 6.62%. We're also seeing highs in real estate at 3.69%, and as well as arts and entertainment at 3.7%.
That's good. Okay, so yeah, go ahead, Susie. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Tyler. I was going to ask, what do you think?
I think it goes without saying, y'all, we're seeing a lot of similar trends, right? Despite the objectives compared to previous slides, right? So attorneys, anything related to healthcare tend to have lower metrics. But before we kind of dive in and pick these apart a little bit further, I do want to point out the big difference between the click-through rate for traffic campaigns versus click-through rate here. So when you look at this at face value, the first thing you might say is like, well, why would that be? Like, why are lead ad campaigns, why is the click-through rate so significantly higher than it would be with a traffic campaign when traffic campaigns are designed to drive clicks, at the end of the day? And it's kind of a challenging, question to answer. And part of it, we won't unpack too much of it today, but there's another metric that's kind of at play here as well. And that's CPM, guys. And so at the end of the day, the wider your net, oftentimes the lower your click-through rate is, right? Because the more eyeballs you get in front of your ads, the lower chance that more of those, potential visitors will click. So, and it's not to say, to kind of rewind a little bit further, not to say that traffic is a worse objective, but the reality is what you're choosing to pay for in that case is more eyes to ultimately drive more clicks at the end of the day. So that traffic campaign, while the lead ads campaign has a higher click-through rate, the traffic campaign, I will guarantee you every single time will have significantly more clicks overall. And the reason that is because the CPMs for traffic campaigns are significantly lower because you're casting that wider net. So that's kind of the big thing here. And the big question too would be, well, why are CPMs so much higher for a lead ads campaign? And there's a couple reasons there, right? Facebook's very proud of their lead ads objective and the objectives that are lower in the funnel, right? They're more expensive, and the audience that we're getting in front of tends to be a more valuable audience, right? Because they're much lower in the funnel and much more ready to give us some of their information. So that's really the reason that those CPMs tend to be significantly higher than the others. There's fewer that are lower in the funnel like that. So Facebook knows that, and their time is limited. And some of the other things too, at the end of the day, the way their algorithm is designed to serve certain objectives, they serve based on historic data to users that they know are willing to take a specific action. And so if you guys stop and think for a second, traffic and clicks, while a very valuable action, we could all agree here that getting an actual lead at the end of the day is a much more valuable action at the end of the day. So Facebook's going to charge more for that action. So when you look at these other verticals here, obviously a lot of the same types of ideas and stereotypes we played into earlier, they're still at play here. Things that are higher in the funnel, things that are just lower commitment, lower cost, they're going to have better metrics at the end of the day. And I think the one I really do want to call out here is travel being far off the charts. If you guys make this a really personal experience right now, think about the number of times y'all have signed up for free giveaways or to get more information about your next trip to, beach or mountain or wherever that may be. It could be to Scotland, right? To go explore a distillery, right? And get more information about Scotch. So the reality is that travel is one of those where it's like, there's just a low commitment, right? And there's a desire to learn a lot more. But again, when you look at attorneys and you look at dental services, those sorts of things, it's a vertical in a space where obviously it's still very important to compete here. That's where all your competitors are, but it's just costly to do business because the users that we're going after know that it costs more. And a lot of times they're, again, a lot more sticky. Usually you'll have an attorney for life once you find one, as long as it's in the legal needs you need. And again, same for your dentist, same for your healthcare, same for your finance and insurance. So as you guys kind of say, trying to kind of pound it in everybody's skulls, there's a lot of things that are on repeat at the end of the day that you'll see with the data. So I think the biggest thing we want to drive home is while it's important to look at overall, like 2.5% is a click-through rate for lead ads, we have to be very careful especially given whatever vertical that you're in, to make sure that we're looking at something that's more appropriate to measure your success by, as opposed to a blanket umbrella. So that's why we love parsing the data as much as we do. And honestly, that's kind of what you guys get when you work with a partner like Local IQ. So yeah, we can hop over to the next slide unless you had more on this one, Susie.
For sure. No, I think you hit the nail on the head with that, Tyler. And with that, that brings us to cost per click in the lead gen campaign. So alternatively from click-through rate here, for cost per click across all industries, the average was $1.92. So a little bit higher than the overall average that we saw over on the traffic types of campaigns. And that alludes to some of what Tyler was just saying of how those clicks can turn into leads and be of more value to your business. So for these leads objective campaigns, the industries that saw the lowest cost per click were actually arts and entertainment at 87 cents, travel at 96 cents, as well as sports and recreation at $1.11. And then on the higher end of the spectrum, we saw attorneys and legal services had the highest cost per click at $5.42. We also saw dentists and dental services up there at $3.82, as well as physicians and surgeons at $3.63. So I did kind of mention how this connected a little bit to what you just said, Tyler, but do you have any thoughts here?
Y'all, so I feel like I sound like a broken record, but we're seeing some trends here that are kind of continuing throughout this presentation. But the thing I do really want to call out here as well is, if you stop and you think about not only stickiness, right? You know, people's unwilling to kind of move on to other service providers. Think about the cost, you know, the end good or service that people are going to acquire. So attorneys and legal services, obviously in the pay-per-click world, it's some of the highest rates you see. The same thing, you know, kind of comes here down to Facebook, even though it's significantly lower. But when you stop and think about how expensive it is for an end client, you know, when they go to court or whatever they're needing, a will done or any number of things, there's a lot of money involved in those types of transactions. So at the end of the day, $5.42 for a click in a space like that, it's phenomenal, you know. So, and again, if you go down and you look at career and employment or arts and entertainment, right, pennies on the dollar in some of these cases, a lot of times the shoe really does fit if you kind of really look at that space. So I don't want to keep beating a dead horse per se, but as you guys are seeing, there's such a strong trend, right? And at the end of the day, if anything else goes to show, the data that we have here is data that truly can help specific verticalized industries, not just broad stroke, hey, we'll hope we'll hit a mark or a target. We're targeted and we know where to go. So that's kind of what I have for this slide, Susie. Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. With that, I am going to jump over to conversion rate here. So if we're thinking about our cost per click, right? So cost per click, of course, you know, click is half the battle. So then you want to move on to actually sealing the deal with that click or that potential lead and turning them into a real lead or conversion here. So across all industries, the average conversion rate was 8.25%. In the industries that saw the highest conversion rate was actually dentists and dental services at 11.34%. We also saw industrial and commercial coming in second at 10.13%, and then as well as arts and entertainment at 9.77%, along with real estate at 9.58%. On the opposite end of the spectrum, some of the industries that had the lowest conversion rate were travel at 3.95%, beauty and personal care 4.61%, as well as physicians and surgeons at 4.99%. So, you know, conversion rate I feel like is always a tricky metric for advertisers. So what would you have to say about that here, Tyler?
Yeah, so I love this one because this one kind of goes against the trends. So let's really hone in on dentists and dental services. So the biggest question, and I know obviously it's a rhetorical question, right? Because it's just you and I on this call, but why would that be? Why would dentists and dental services, the conversion rate go significantly higher than some of these others? And then same for some of the ones that are more sticky as well. And the reality is that these types of ads, usually if you're not in the market for it, you continue to scroll, right? But when we're talking in the context of conversion rate, we're talking on somebody who's already clicked on that ad. So the reality is if somebody's already clicked on your dental ad, they're likely very much in the market, right? It's not just in arts and entertainment. Sometimes you'll click on something just because you want to be nosy, you want to get a feel for it. You're never just clicking on a dental ad to be nosy, right? Or to kind of get a feel for that space. You're probably very high intent. So in reality, that's kind of why, and I love that the data shows us this, that the trends kind of flip on their head here. So if you can get that hard fought click, the conversion rate can be incredibly high and incredibly rewarding. So at the end of the day, I think the most valuable piece here is once they get behind that door, what is it that they're giving you? What is it that you're giving them in return to give you that data? So at the end of the day, that's kind of what that comes down to. So it's cool, right, that it kind of challenges our original thoughts, right? We're not seeing that trend across all of these, but you will see even on finance and attorneys, there's a moderate increase compared to where we were on the previous slides. So again, someone is already willing to click and see behind that veil. That means they're already much more likely than some of these other verticals to go ahead and just take that extra step. So I love this slide because again, it kind of challenges what you would think traditionally. Yeah.
Right, I do agree with that. It must be a little refreshing for some of the folks in some of these industries that had a little bit of the lower end of the spectrum on some of these other metrics, that they actually see the opposite effect when it comes to conversion rate with leads campaigns. So again, kind of just a little word of encouragement as we're going through this. If you feel like, oh man, my industry is not crushing it the same way that this industry is, you know, in these metrics, or my business is nowhere near this, that's okay too. In one man's metric that isn't doing so great is another man's treasure metric. So as we go on with that, you know, there's always ways that you can improve and see the results that you want. So with that, I will hop over to the money metric, as I love to call it. Everybody loves to lean in on cost per lead, and it makes sense, right? If you have money going towards these ads, you know, that's precious resources putting towards your advertisement. You want to see that ROI. So I understand why a lot of businesses always want to focus in on CPL. But as we're talking through CPL, think about all the other metrics leading up to this that can impact that money metric that you care so much about. So if you feel like your cost per lead is a little high, you know, start to consider how those other metrics might be impacting that, or potentially, you know, the value of those leads and if that would offset the cost per lead cost for you. So with that said, the cost per lead for lead gen campaigns across all industries was $12.10. The industry that had the highest cost per lead was attorneys and legal services at $78.26, followed by health and fitness at $60.95, along with physicians and surgeons. On the opposite end, some of the industries that had the lowest cost per lead were real estate at $12.43, arts and entertainment at $13.46, as well as sports and recreation at $15.33. So I know I kind of teed up the landscape here for cost per lead, Tyler, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on cost per lead.
Yeah. So I feel like this slide, out of every other slide that we've kind of gone through so far today, tells the best story of why you should never compare one vertical to another, right at the end of the day, because you can see that money very clearly, right? And again, before we saw trends ups, downs, some were better, some were lower, but comparing an attorney and a legal service to, let's say, real estate, that is the most apples to, it's not even oranges. We're not even talking about fruit anymore. We're in two total different categories. Let's say apples to keyboards, because that's what's on my desk right now, and we'll just kind of go with that. So I love seeing this. And I also love seeing this as well, right? Because obviously everybody who's on this call, right, who has a business that they're running, you do have some sort of, you're related to some of these industries at the end of the day. And if you sit and you stop and you think about, okay, if I'm an attorney, if I'm an arts and entertainment person, right, and I'm going to Facebook, does this justify the cost at the end of the day? And based on what I know about all these industries, you know, having been working with most of these industries through the years, I would say a resounding yes. A resounding yes, right? Because if we could, on a dime, get a lead for an attorney for $78.26 day in and day out, and that turns into a minimum $2,000 to $3,000 client who has a very basic, you know, LLC they want to establish, or, you know, a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 client who needs to go to court, whatever that may be, right? $78, that's as close to printing money as possible, right? And then if you look at, you know, things like arts and entertainment, or you know, or furniture, or home improvement, some of those fare even better, right, at the end of the day. So the amount of cost that you're going to spend to get a lead, this only proves that Facebook is the space you need to be, honestly, at the end of the day, because there's not a single vertical on here who could not be incredibly cost effective running lead ads on Facebook. Just that, it's absolutely cost effective for your business. So I love this. This is my favorite slide, honestly, Susie, out of all of them, because it shows us where the money is.
I love it, where the money is. That's great to hear. I'm glad this is your favorite slide. I hope this is all our attendees' favorite slide as well. No, but I completely agree with what you said, is that there is money to be made in Facebook ads, especially, and I hate to keep alluding to this, but for anyone familiar with our search ad benchmarks, or if you're familiar with advertising on platforms like Google and Microsoft, where it can be a little bit more costly, but equally as rewarding, of course, this can be a great way to offset costs if you feel like you're feeling the heat over on those types of platforms. If you're comparing these types of costs to the costs that you would typically see in search ads, these are generally much lower. But of course, the industries that are seeing the higher costs on Facebook tend to be the same types of industries that see the higher costs on search ads as well. So with that, I will give us a few thought starters. I know this was a ton of information. The hour really does fly, and we covered a lot. I mean, I've been in the marketing game for a long time, and even this is a lot. Tyler's commentary too is a lot to absorb for sure. So with that, I'll kind of round up some of the main takeaways that I want you all to feel good about walking away with, and we'll dig into the Q&A as well. But again, if this feels like a lot, that's okay. It's a lot of information just squeezed into an hour, and that's why we record it and give you the materials after as well. So at the end of the day, what you need to know about these Facebook benchmarks is that you should be pacing and tracking your performance very consistently and regularly, and be sure to compare your advertising performance on Facebook to this data. It can help you gauge how you're doing against your competitors and other businesses like yours within your industry. And like I said, I know that a lot of us consider ourselves to be in a more specific or niche market within that industry. Again, use these as a guideline to help you kind of establish your own tracking and benchmarking processes for your unique situation. And as I've said a million times, of course, every business is unique. So be sure to align your expectations for what's achievable. And a great example of this that I always love to say is, let's say your budget is super small to start, which is okay. Let's say it's, max $10 a day. I'm just spitballing, right? If that was, and your average cost per click is $10, then guess what? You're only able to afford that one click per day. And that one click better convert. Now, and that's okay. And that is where my point was going, is that you just want to set your expectations according to that. So maybe you do only get that one click per day, and maybe you only get that one, conversion per week or whatnot. But as you continue to advertise and continue to grow your business, then you'll get more historical data, be able to optimize, get those lower costs per click, add more to that budget, and eventually grow and see the results that you want. So kind of just taking those stepping stones with your goals in alignment with these benchmarks is really just the way to go. And then also, if there's one thing that I always want advertisers to take away from these webinars, is always have a backup plan, right? Your Facebook ads, while extremely important to your business growth, cannot be the end all be all for your online advertising strategy. You want to complement your Facebook ads with a larger holistic marketing strategy that covers multiple channels, so that way you're covering your bases, and where your Facebook ads or search ads might be lacking, another platform can go in and supplement and help you achieve your goals across all the different channels and all of the different touch points that your customers will have with your business across the web. So while you are running your Facebook ads, always just be thinking about, if these campaigns and these ads crush it and I'm hitting my goals, great, what am I going to do next? Am I going to scale up, and am I going to keep running this? If my Facebook ads don't quite meet the expectations that I ideally want, what am I going to do to change it? How am I going to pivot so that I can keep my strategy moving forward? So, again, having that flexibility, not being married to one set strategy, is really going to put you in the right position to see success on Facebook ads. So with that said, I know this was a lot of information, like I said. If you feel like you have a lot of unique individual questions, you want more information, more time with the data here, if you feel like you're ready to take your Facebook ads to the next level, feel free to hit yes on that poll that just took over your screen. You'll have the opportunity to speak with an expert one-on-one like Tyler to get your questions answered and see how our digital marketing solutions can help you have your Facebook ads reach their fullest potential. Now, I know it was a lot of information, so definitely feel free to hit yes on that if you feel like you have more questions. I saw a lot of questions coming in about specific industries, specific niche markets, specific scenarios. This is your opportunity to get those types of questions answered, because again, I know we all have unique needs that we need to have these questions answered. So I am going to leave that poll up for the remainder of the webinar, so it will take over your whole screen. There's no more slides at this point. We are going to switch into the Q&A portion of the webinar, so you can just, once you answer that poll, sit back, relax, and listen to this audio portion, listen in on this Q&A session for the last 15 minutes or so. So with that said, Tyler, for this Q&A session here, tons of questions coming in. I might even want to say, out of all the hundreds of webinars I've done, this definitely had the most questions that I've seen in a while. So I will hope that we can answer as much as we can. As you can probably tell, everyone in the audience, Tyler and I can talk about Facebook ads all day. So while we won't be able to answer every single one of your questions, and we wish we could, there's tons coming in, and keep those coming in. So I'll try and answer as much as we can here. And Tyler, so many great questions, and I'll try and kick us off with a couple of here. So one of the key questions here, and I think you kind of touched on this, was I think some folks were wondering, you know, we looked at traffic campaign data, we looked at lead campaign data. They obviously have their own place, their own benefits. Do you feel like one campaign objective is arguably better than another? I feel like I know the answer you'll probably give us, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like if someone said, all right, well, the data on both of these types of campaigns don't really align with, you know, what I might need. Should I choose a traffic campaign or a lead gen campaign? What would you say?
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like that this report answers both. As easy as it is to say, right? Because if you're not covering all steps of the funnel, you're missing out on, honestly, you know, very important pieces, right? So if all you do is focus in on leads, which that's fair, right? Because at the end of the day, like that's what brings in the money, that's the bread and butter. But how are you getting your name out there to a market that doesn't even know you, right? So back in the day when I used to be self-employed and I had to, you know, sell myself to put bread on the table, I kind of lived and died basically by a statement of, you're not poor because you're good at what you do. You're poor because no one knows you exist, right? And I know that's an extreme kind of example, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what helped me put bread on the table for the longest time. Because at the end of the day, people didn't know me, you know. And if I wasn't focusing on branding and I wasn't focusing on getting my name out there, how was I going to convert a lead later on down the road? So I just think you can't separate one from the other, honestly. So as far as what we have at Local IQ, we've actually created some packages, right, that help kind of take the guesswork out of that and kind of lean into AI and some smart learning and technology to kind of decide where your marketing dollars should go at what stage in the funnel to ultimately end up driving the most leads while not forgetting, you know, some of the pieces at the higher part of the funnel, like a traffic objective. So I love that question. It comes up a lot. That's kind of the honest answer. You need both. You really do.
No, I agree. I think that's an excellent answer. I think because again, if you're thinking about the different goals here, those achieve different things, but they're both meaningful to your business, as you said, Tyler.
Yeah.
This is another really interesting question, and I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are on this. Jeff asked, do you think it's better to increase ad spend or create a more targeted demographic to increase click-through rate and decrease cost per click? Basically, Jeff is wondering, you know, if you want to see better, you know, more results, should you immediately default to potentially adding more ad spend to cover a wider net, or refine your targeting to increase your chances of getting more clicks and conversions from a more niche audience?
That's a really challenging question to answer straightforward. And I would say the biggest factor that is, it comes down to geo, right? And what is the potential, you know, available eyes that you have in that market space? Because at the end of the day, ramping up ad spend could be terrible, right, in a very rural market. But also getting hyper targeted could also be terrible in a very rural market, right? Whereas vice versa, you know, in a larger metropolitan area, doing both, you know, could be more beneficial. So it's a really, really hard one to answer, you know, without having a very specific kind of knowing that market and also knowing the vertical that it falls into. They can both be used, but it has to be methodical on how you would use it. So I wouldn't say one or the other. It's just very situational, depending on what the market is and the demographics we're going after.
Totally fair, and I agree with that. And to all the folks listening in, you'll probably hear me say this a lot if you've attended our past webinars. In the Q&A, I always say there is no right or wrong or black and white answer to a lot of these marketing questions, right? There always is, different ways to approach something, to get different results, different strategies, and ultimately, like you said, Tyler, dependent on the specific situation, which is why we have that poll up, for those super hyper targeted, hyper specific types of questions where you can really dig into your unique business. But with that, I had another question kind of related come in, Tyler, from Danya. They asked, can cost per click be different depending on whether you are targeting in a rural area compared to targeting a city with a larger population? It sounds like you just answered that. Essentially, it could be yes, but I'd love to get your thoughts.
Absolutely. And the honest answer that kind of comes down to is that the inventory that Facebook has available. So if you think about a small rural area, and I kind of grew up in a more rural city, growing up, there's fewer eyeballs, and if you have fewer eyeballs, the cost per click tends to be higher. Because if you think about as well, like the number of eyeballs you have, the number of times that they're on their apps or wherever ads could be served, it's just much more limited. Whereas if you go into, kind of a wider, net, let's say Dallas, where I live now, there's just more chances to serve your ads, and which ultimately lends to more chances for more eyeballs, and ultimately more clicks. So yes, I would say it's not to say that, rural communities are at a disadvantage per se. The playing field's just different. It's a different board game, I guess I should say. So you could, venture to guess that costs would be potentially a little higher, but sometimes that's not always the case, because if competition is significantly lower in your space as well, sometimes it's lower. So again, I hate to say such a vague answer, but it can be very situational, but you are kind of on the right train of thought there. Not every geo is on the same playing field. That is for sure true.
For sure. And again, I think too, when you're thinking about, it could definitely be that, especially with those larger populations, those larger demographics, the opportunity to show your ad more, it's eventually could cause you to spend a little bit more, but like you said, it's completely situational. One other question, I know we kept harping on wanting that multi-channel holistic marketing strategy where you're marketing as much as you can across as many different channels as possible. Ryan asked a really valid question here. He asked, what have you found is a decent marketing mix across industries, including Facebook? So when we're talking about how businesses should use Facebook ads and complement with other channels, with the clients that you typically work with, what do you see them doing for their marketing mix?
Yeah, I hate to say that this one's very situational, but I do have a better answer here on that one. And what I would say is we start with a good baseline, right? Kind of depending on where the client has been, what they've run in the past, and then we get really scientific with it. So over time, right, if leads to something that needs a little bit more love and care, we could shift some of that marketing dollars over more toward the lead campaign if we know that we've got traffic on lock, and then vice versa as well. So I don't want to say 50-50 is the right makeup, but it's absolutely going to be informed by kind of where you have been before, kind of what vertical that you're in, and then honestly, it's a commitment between us and you, to say, look, this might not be where we're fixed. 12 months from now, you could be 20-80 split, just 20 going to traffic and 80 going towards leads because you've cast such a wide net, and you've saturated your market, so everybody's coming to you. So it's very much one of those things where there's a lot of science that we can apply to this case, but it's also situational, right? Based on where we've been, and honestly, what the data tells us as we're running your campaigns.
Absolutely. And one last question here. I know we're getting close to time, Tyler, and I'm so appreciative of you being on here and providing your expert insight. So thank you again so much. But for one last question with these last couple of minutes we have, I think this kind of really wraps up a lot of the questions that we saw. A lot of folks were, saying that they weren't totally sure on how much money they should be putting towards their Facebook ads, what types of costs to expect. So Bridget asked a really good question that I think kind of relates to this. How should you decide on how to distribute your spend in terms of multiple different campaigns and maybe even different campaign lengths? She said, for example, shorter campaign might equal more money per day, or a longer campaign for less money per day for maximum impact. Do you have any advice around you know, just overall just managing your spend, especially across multiple campaigns?
Yeah, I would start with kind of like a really simple answer to that. And it comes down to what can you afford, right now at this time, right? Because I know a lot of folks on this call are small business owners like I used to be in the past. And at the end of the day, it's like, how much money do you have to put bread on the table, to enjoy, some of the things you want to do in life? And then how much money are you willing to put back into the business for growth? As far as how to kind of be methodical on your strategy, it's a much more challenging, I guess, question to answer, because at the end of the day, most of us are in business 365, right? Year over year, day after day. And so it's just kind of a challenge, to really answer that question straightforward. So a lot of times we'll have clients who will want to say, can we run ads on just Monday through Friday? And they're like, well, we're only open Monday through Friday. But if you stop and think about when your potential clients are searching, it could be late at night, it could be on the weekends. It just really depends, right? It's very rare that there's situational ads that make sense to only serve at specific times. A really good example, let's say you're in the roofing business, right? And a massive hailstorm comes through a certain area. Those are the types of things that you absolutely need to be in the market when it makes sense, when people are hunting, right? Because there's a need. But if what you're in the business of providing is not an immediate need, immediate gratification style business, there's never an appropriate time for you to be out of the marketplace. The question is always, how much representation do you need? So if you are more seasonal per se, it might not make sense for you to be as ramped up in December as it does per se in July, but it doesn't make sense to not be top of mind and to try and kind of be higher in the funnel. So I would say in your seasons where generating heavy leads, if it's off market, if that's not your season at the time that we're running ads, maybe it's your season to get your name out there, right? Because how long will it take for your end client to really stew on you as a potential, supplier or business they want to work with, to finally convert when it's time for them to buy? So I think it's always important to be in market, but when you need to deploy a certain strategy is going to depend on your seasonality. So again, not a super straightforward answer, but again, also based on what your vertical is and yeah, when you go to compete in the market. So.
Absolutely. And don't worry, Tyler, the answers don't need to be straightforward. They're so valuable. I completely agree with what you said. And I think that your points are totally valid. Seriously, thank you so much, Tyler, for the expertise. And thank you so much to everyone on this call. Give yourselves a pat on the back for showing up, being here, being present to work on your advertising and improve your Facebook ads. So thank you all so much for joining us. We do these webinars monthly, sometimes twice monthly. Keep your eyes peeled for our December webinar. Tyler, thank you again so much. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Thanks, y'all.